The Cine Men, episode 41, as sources have told me mere seconds ago. We're
Have you checked your sources? Are they reliable?
not as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure your source was me, so you might be boned.
It
Math
might be
is not my
boned.
area, but I'm pretty sure we're at episode 41. How did we get to
41.
41 already?
We did
Well, we
40
took a
others.
couple of accidental hiatuses. That's how we're only at 41. Should be more.
We should be on 137 right now, but only 41. But we do have a guest with us this time around.
We do. We have an amazing guest. Our second returning guest. Someone actually went, hey, let's do this again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Nicole, how are you?
I'm good. I'm so excited to be back.
Yay. And
We are excited to have
that's
you.
how she sounded before we started recording. Anyway, so how you been, Nicole? How you doing?
I'm all right. It's been a weird past couple of weeks. I would not recommend having a move line up with the week of a presidential election, line up with the week that you have to get a sudden surgery.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
It's been interesting. It's been interesting. I've been at my parents' house for a while because I've needed help to change like the dressing on my surgery wound. So luckily I live in the same town as them, so I've been able to do that. But it is funny because it's made it a little bit harder to get through watching screeners and the normal stuff that I would be doing because they're like, do you want to come watch this with us? Like, we're watching this Hallmark movie. Do you want to watch it?
No, the answer to that is no. I will not. Thank you for the invite. No.
Hey, I hear they added a Hanukkah movie this year. They're
That is
getting
what I hear.
progressive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll get
Finally,
we'll get a Kwanzaa movie by 2059.
Yeah, from what I understand, the Hanukkah one is more about them hiding their Jewishness. So I don't even know if it's any
No.
good, but that's what I've heard. I haven't seen it yet, but I read the description and I was like, this is horrible. This must be what people think Jews want in a holiday movie, except Hanukkah's a minor holiday. So I got nothing.
I mean, I feel like sometimes it's nice to watch like the Hallmark movies just so that then whenever I am watching like these award season contenders, I'm like, this is film.
So the palate cleanser. You need the
Yeah,
palate.
you need to get like the other. Oh right, like this is what a film could be.
Mhm. In order to know joy, you gotta experience pain.
Well, and it's
Exactly.
not even the pain aspect, but you're absolutely right. There is a place for all different kinds of, and you used the F word, Nicole. You said film, not movies, not cinema, film.
Film, capital
Film.
F.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's room for all different kinds of stuff, which is why it's fine to like what you like
Yes.
because there's room for that. But yes, there is also that sort of, oh, you know what? I have a great time watching Marvel movies, but even I know, all right, this is something I can put on and relax to. I don't
Mhm.
need to get heavily invested in this unless it's like Infinity War and Endgame, in which case, I mean, all bets are off. That one got a little emotional, but the rest of them, nobody's crying in Homecoming. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe I mean maybe the first Iron Man, like that's the first Iron Man. The more I rewatch it, the more I'm like, oh no, this is actually like a war movie,
Yeah.
not a superhero film. But most of them, it's like, some nice like light watching.
Yes.
I don't know what y'all
Okay, I
talking
think,
about, man. I relax to Schindler's List when I'm at home.
dude, don't even with me.
That's a
No.
nice deep darkness. I'm like, my
No.
comfort zone.
You could have saved one more, Daryl. You could have saved one more. Okay,
Yeah,
well, this got dark.
all types of
Yeah.
movies out there. Doug, what have you seen recently, sir?
Well, what I've seen recently actually fits that description. There's three that I wanted to mention. One, by the time that this releases, is already going to be out on home video. It got a brief theatrical VOD and digital release, a sci-fi movie called 2067. Did y'all hear about this?
I
I
It's
have
heard about it.
heard about it.
okay. It's got
Yeah.
Cody Smith-McPhee, which most folks know as Nightcrawler from the new X-Men films, with, and I'm hoping I pronounced this right, Ryan Quanten, who I think was in True Blood. So if any of you have ever watched True Blood, you've seen him naked. But the premise of the film is that by 2067, the oxygen supply on Earth is basically gone because we've just ravaged the Earth of all of its regular greenery. So there's nothing natural that's creating oxygen. And so using science, they create a synthetic oxygen effect of poisoning people. So while that's well and good, our boy Cody, his father is a scientist who's trying to use time travel, that they figure if they can get to the future when maybe Earth's descendants will have solved the problem of the illness, maybe they could get it and fix everything. What's neat about this movie is it's actually not about time travel. It's about relationships. It's about personal responsibility. It's uses time travel to isolate so that it can explore concepts more so than it can be a film about time travel, if that makes any sense whatsoever.
That sounds pretty damn interesting.
So it's not at all what I expected. The one recommendation I can make if you watch it is don't try to think that you're smarter than it is, because it sets up stuff to get you thinking about things. But being a time travel film, you're more likely to be like, oh, well, if X happens, then Y has to happen, therefore what have you. And you start to think about the ripples that will come out of it. Don't think about it that way at all. It was an entertaining flick, and I was impressed with the manner in which it stuck the landing. So I would say it's at least worth checking out, even if you rent it. The other one I watched, and I'm curious if either of you saw it, I saw Dolittle, finally. Did y'all check this out?
Oh, man.
No.
I saw Dolittle in the theater.
Okay, you are covering your face right now, and my camera's frozen, so I don't even know if you guys can see me.
No.
But so Nicole, why are you covering your face at the mere mention of Dolittle?
I mean, every studio executive, every actor, everybody involved with this should be covering their face when you talk about this movie.
Why?
Mostly the funny thing about it is, like, the movies that I saw in a cinema in 2020 are very, like, it's a short list, and the fact that Dolittle is one of them, like, it's not the one that I'm like, oh, I'm glad I saw that on a big screen. Like, I think Dolittle is one of those films that actually probably seems better if you don't watch it in a big cinema.
let me tell you something. I was okay, and you could have offered an amazing perspective on this, and I don't want to get us sidetracked too far. But I heard about Dolittle. People were talking about this movie the same way people talked about Cats. That made me think, were you aware of the source material before you saw it? Because I saw Cats, and I hadn't seen the play, but I knew a couple of songs, like two of them, the ones that just about everybody knows that isn't into Broadway. And I went, oh, this is a play about cats. So it's humans dressed up as cats. And then people went and saw the movie and went, why are people dressed up as cats and acting like cats? Why are these folks horny all the time?
Yeah.
Did you watch the play?
Boning, that's why.
Do you know anything about it? This is how they were in the play. So with Dolittle, first of all, it's got an incredible voice cast. But for me, what made it enjoyable was watching my son, who is 5. We tried to do a tradition of Friday night picnics where we put on a movie and eat dinner in the. When the animals started talking that he could understand, he literally turned around, big smile on his face, and was like, they're talking. He was so excited, my heart burst. But then the end of the movie comes, the one moment everybody was talking about with the dragon, and I'm like, He's a veterinarian. Why are people upset about this? It's the same thing with the cats drinking the milk, and like, why are they being all sexy? And I'm like, why are you horny for cats? And with this one, I'm like, why are you upset that a veterinarian is acting like a veterinarian? I thought Dolittle was fun. I agree with you that I wouldn't have wanted to have paid like $20 or $30 to see it for one ticket, but certainly seeing Gone for a matinee would have been fun. Take the family. So if you haven't seen it, I'd say check it out. It's on home video now. And then the last one is going to be divisive amongst the Paprikans, Vanguard. This is a Stanley Tong directed film. It's the 9th movie that Stanley has done with Jackie Chan. And Jackie had come up recently in conversation. It's apparently a little divisive. I recently found out some stuff about Jackie and his home life, if you will, that was a little, that's a little disappointing. Fun flick if you like martial arts movies. It's got 4 big action sequences. Most of them are really wonderfully developed and put together. And it feels like a better Mission Impossible meets Fast and Furious movie than those are. Although it needs a bigger budget for some of the stuff. And Vanguard hits select 20th, but is looking at a VOD digital release sometime in 2021, I've been told. So if you are, wait to see it at home. But it's at least entertaining. So those are the big 3 I got for you.
Right
so
on.
I can do 3, Daryl. I can do 3.
It's well, wonders never cease in the year of 2020.
No, wonders are in short supply. We need them.
You're right. I when the Doolittle trailer dropped, I asked my daughter, I was like, "You want to go see this movie? We're gonna check it out." And she looked me dead in my face and she goes, "No, Daddy." And I was like, "Oh, thank God!"
Oh my God!
Dodge that bullet.
Dodge the bullet on that one. But yeah, no, I still have not seen Doolittle, nor do I plan on it. The movies that I have to bring to the table today, I got 2 for you. I watched Dreamland, the Paramount joint that's coming up.
That's one of mine to talk about.
You know what? No, I'll leave you.
We've all seen it. Yay!
Yeah, we've seen films. I'll let you.
So good for a movie podcast.
Yeah,
good when we watch movies.
I'll switch over to the rare documentary because that's not really my thing, but I have been checking them out lately. I watched Vinyl Nation, man, and God bless, that was a good documentary. As far as it kind of just starts out as just people who collected vinyl and the hunt for vinyl, and it kind of morphs into to less about the vinyl, although it does take you through like here's how vinyl's made, and these are the plants, and this is the big boom, and then people weren't buying, and these all shut down, all that, and it kind of morphs just into a love for music, which is pretty much the heart and the center theme of this documentary is just a love of music, and vinyl is the people in this documentary is their preferred way to ingest, and of course they get into the conversation of what's the best way to ingest it? Is it streaming? Is it vinyl? Is it CD? Is it cassette? And at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter so long as you can enjoy that music. And just the giant vinyl. It's according to Doug Davidson, there is a definitive answer, despite the fact that the entire documentary said no, however you want to enjoy it.
My master's thesis differences between the gratifications people get from physical media versus digital media, and the authenticity and sound will always go to physical media, and of all physical media, it's vinyl. So vinyl.
Okay, there you go.
I haven't seen the documentary. I just trust science.
I feel like I need to watch this documentary. I'm literally getting a record player for Christmas this year.
Ooh, wait a minute. Hold on a second.
Vinyl.
What do you mean?
Yay, that's so exciting.
You're getting a record player for Christmas. You're not supposed to know what you're getting for Christmas mid-November.
What is 2020? Anything can happen.
My parents are those people who are like, we need to know what you want like by the end of October so that we're not shopping in December with everyone else. So that is what I asked for this year, and I asked for a handful of vinyl to start using the record player. So I'm very excited to see what all the hype is. So I feel like I need to watch this documentary now.
Yeah, Vinyl Nation is a great documentary. It was directed by Christopher Boone and Kevin Smokler. It had me dig out my old vinyl because I just started out as, hey, it would be cool if I had this classic hip hop album on vinyl, and then I leave the country for a year, and I come back. And then all of a sudden, like in that year, it had just exploded, and everybody was checking out vinyl. So I just fit right back up in that groove. And it's weird hearing albums that are considered generational classics. Like I have Thriller on vinyl, and it's crazy listening to the Dark Side of the Moon and a different kind of experience. Right? It's a very, very well done documentary. I really enjoyed it. So Nicole, man, over to you. Go ahead and talk about Dreamland and anything else you want to talk about.
Yeah, I've got a couple of films that I've watched recently that I've enjoyed. Dreamland honestly shocked me, mostly because I feel this film before I got the screener for it. And I believe it's in limited release starting on the 13th, and it's
Yes.
doing VOD, I think, on the 17th. It's a tight window before VOD happens, but it is this like 1935 like neo-Western coming of age film with Margot Robbie as like a Great Depression Dust Bowl era bank robber, which I did a huge project in college for my history major about Bonnie and Clyde, them as a social phenomenon and about this idea of outlaws during the Great Depression. And so of course this film was like very much in my wheelhouse, and I love Margot Robbie. I think she's one of the most talented actresses working today. And I think this film, because the film, it's not a perfect movie. It's got a lot of issues. Mostly I take issue with the romance in it. Like, I don't think it sells that very well at all. I think it's much more interesting when it is being a coming of age and a movie about, you know, sort of what these people in Texas are going through with the Dust Bowl on top of the Depression. But that said, like, for the fact that it is flying completely under the radar, I think it's super worth checking out. And it's got some really great visuals work, and a lot of these shots of, like, I don't know if they actually filmed in Texas, but the Texas plains. I was really wowed by it. It is the kind of film that I'm like, dang, I kind of wish I could have seen that in a movie theater.
Daryl, you said you saw it.
Correct.
Daryl,
Can you hear me?
can you hear me?
Hello.
Oh,
Daryl?
he's a little quiet.
Yeah, suddenly Daryl's really quiet.
Can you not hear me?
Can't hear you at all.
Oh.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Okay, well then, Daryl, I'm not. Nicole, I have a question for you. Because I was wondering about this with Dreamland, without getting into spoilers, the setup, if you will, for the film is that the lead actor, Finn Cole, am I remembering that right? Okay.
Yes.
It's his character's sister that's telling the story, almost legend of. Do you think the romance was her creation, if she's the one telling the story?
That is something that I wondered about, or if it doesn't work because, you know, if that is part of the thing, is like it doesn't quite fit together because she's inventing a lot of those details whenever it gets to that part, because that largely happens once he is out of that. And I do wonder if that's part of like why that part doesn't quite work. Because I do think that like it takes a little bit of a weird turn. Once sort of you're out of that town in Texas and you're out of his household. But I think that there's still a lot to appreciate in the film. And I also thought it was really interesting. I used to watch, and I'm not caught up, but I used to watch Vikings, which was a TV show on, I guess, what was that, the History Channel? And Travis Fimmel, who I've never seen in anything other than Vikings, plays the main character's like lawman's stepfather, and he's very good in the role. But I was like, why do I know him? And then I looked it up and like, it's from Viking. I was like, okay, that makes sense. I was like, I know I've blue eyes somewhere before.
Can you guys hear me now?
I
You're
can
really
hear you,
quiet.
but just barely. Yeah.
Can you turn your mic on and off? See if that's the thing. I'm sorry that we're running into technical.
Okay.
If we had the license rights, I'd play some music.
I can unless Daryl has stuff to add about Dreamland, I can talk about my next film if that helps.
Go for it, and we'll work it out.
Okay. One of the other things that I've seen recently is Ammonite, which has just been released in 2 theaters, but I got to see it on Screener, luckily. And this is one of those films that was one of my most anticipated of this year. And then the reviews hit for it, and I was like, "Oh no," because they were mixed. They were not what I would have expected for a film, you know, starring Kate Winslet and Saoirse Ronan. And as y'all know, I love a period drama, and I gotta say, it's not a terrible film. I think some people made it sound like it's a horrific movie, and it's not. It's a fine film, and Saoirse Ronan's very good in it. Kate Winslet is very good in it, and they're both doing things I didn't know they could do. They both are playing very much against type, which is fascinating. But again, it's an interesting movie where the romance of it like doesn't quite work. It's much more interesting when it's being a character study of these two women. It's still very much worth watching, but I just did a podcast review on it for next. Was the same set of people that we'd had on the podcast review for Summerland earlier this year, which is another period drama with a lesbian romance in it. And we all were kind of at the end of it like, so anyways, watch Summerland.
Do you think because Portrait of a Lady on Fire was so wonderfully received, although I would argue should have been, then again, really going up against Parasite, what are you going to do?
Right.
But personally, I liked Portrait better than Parasite. And since Daryl's having mic issues, I don't have to worry about him doing anything other than glare at me.
Nah, fuck all this.
Hey, he's back. That's all it took. That's all it took.
Doug to be spouting some nonsense.
Well, to be fair, and Daryl and I talked about this. Quick side note, and then I'll get back to my question. Daryl and I watched Parasite together last year, and Daryl lived in Seoul, so he knew things about the community, about the culture, about the food that went right over my head. So these wonderful details that are in Parasite, I didn't get until after he explained some of them to me, and then until after I did some research. We watched Parasite to see if it connects with me a little bit better. Portrait, I just loved. Do you think, and I wasn't aware about Summerland in this regard, but do you think that because Portrait set the bar so high that with a cast that it's Ammonite, right? Ammonite.
Yeah.
That because of its cast that people were expecting Portrait and then just didn't get it?
I think that definitely people were expecting Portrait, or they were expecting, God's Own Country or something. I think people thought it was going to be this masterpiece. It got tossed around with this idea that like, oh, maybe it's a Best Picture contender. Like maybe this will be the thing that gets Saoirse Ronan her Oscar. And I don't think that I think Saoirse could still get nominated. I think Kate Winslet might still get nominated, but it's not the masterpiece that Portrait of a Lady on Fire is. And while in some ways I think that the comparisons that some people are making, like, it's not like it's the same film, but in English, it's not that far. But you do have these period drama films or in around the same time period, not exactly, but close enough, featuring a lesbian romance by the seaside. And I think that, whenever both of them have a lot of shots of two women on a beach, like you're going to get those comparisons. And while obviously Ammonite is a little bit more accessible in that it's English language and, there are still people who won't go for the foreign language film, which they're losing out because Portrait is a gorgeous movie. On the other hand, Portrait has a vibrancy to it that Ammonite is very quiet and very restrained for most of the film. And I think it's gonna, it'll get comparisons to that. I think as time goes on, it'll get compared to like even Carol and Be Found Wanting. It's the third period drama I've watched this year with a like lesbian romance in it. There's Summerland, and then there's also The World to Come, which has Vanessa Kirby. And I think Ammonite's the worst of the three, which again isn't to say it's a bad film. Like I gave it a 7 out of 10, but I think it is one of those things that got overhyped. And I also think was maybe not marketed the right way, which we could talk about the mismarketing of Portrait of a Lady on Fire all day. But I think that people just aren't sure how to market this sort of film. And I think that if they marketed it as more of a character study film, maybe people wouldn't have the issues with it that they have. Maybe. But yeah.
I said on Twitter a couple days ago, man, the lesbian period pieces are the new hotness right now. There's one thing that Hollywood loves. It's a trend. They saw how well Portrait did. And I think they just immediately kickstarted, what do we have that's like that, so we can cash in on that Portrait money and that Portrait esteem. And we are now seeing people wanting the returns without putting in the work, much like Justice League. Getting back to
happy 3rd anniversary to Justice League.
That's right. Getting back to Dreamland real quick. Yeah, I thought it was bland. I thought it was okay at best. Nothing really wowed me or knocked my socks off. Definitely not the story. Well, the cinematography, cinematography was pretty damn decent, but the story I thought was fairly bland, pretty unoriginal.
They had a lot of great ideas, I think, and I loved this idea of like, oh, it's being told in this retrospect from this character who like only witnessed parts of it, but it felt like they had all these really good themes that they didn't like punch hard enough on, and it just ended up being like, oh, that's it at the end. Like, and it has a great final shot. It actually has one of my favorite final shots of any movie this year, and I was like, wow, and then I was like, but for what?
Yeah, I thought it was.
Remember what it was?
Okay.
The shot of Margot Robbie.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah. And thank you, Nicole, for reminding me that Ammonite is sitting in my inbox. I'd completely forgotten about it.
Ooh, lucky you.
That's something I need to check out.
Lucky you.
Sometime soon. I got to watch Beanpole tonight. Anything else?
I'm going to watch, well, I can't tell you.
Oh, this guy.
No. On mic, I can't talk about. This wasn't me trying to be an asshole. I just was about to and realized I can't talk about it. I'm not allowed.
This guy.
Yep.
Sorry. Anything else, Nicole?
Yeah, I guess one other thing I'll talk about. God, it makes it sound like I only watch films about women.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Like,
we
you
love
know,
women
honestly,
on the cinnamon.
Maybe I do. So, but I did get to watch the other night, which I think a lot of critics got to do the same screening, so it was probably all over Twitter. I got to watch Pieces of a Woman, which I feel like I should talk about since I already mentioned Vanessa Kirby once, which I really wasn't quite sure what I was getting myself into whenever I agreed to it. But one of my friends was like, "Oh, just be ready. It's very depressing." And I was like, "Oh, good. What have I done?" And I was a big fan of Vanessa Kirby's work on The Crown. I actually saw her in a play at the National Theatre in London, which I got to see from the third row, which is pretty amazing. We like made eye contact during the bows, and I was like, oh my God.
How are you alive right now? She is amazing.
Honestly.
A heart goes pitter patter.
Oh, she's so great. Like, locking eyes with her was one of the best moments of my life. But so I knew, like, going into the movie, and I'd seen her in The World to Come earlier this year. And so I was like, okay, well, Pieces of a Woman, like, I'm going to at least enjoy her performance. And it is a draining movie. It is, for anyone who doesn't know, it's about a couple who lose their child during a home birth and end up in court with the midwife over what occurred. And it's also sort of about their relationship as it falls apart. Vanessa Kirby, and then it has Ellen Bernstein as her mother, and also Shia LaBeouf as her husband. And I will say it has probably my favorite courtroom scenes of any movie this year. And yes, that's me shading Trial of the Chicago 7. But it also starts with a 23-minute...
Excuse me a second. Daryl, get the look off your face. Not everybody is a fan of Aaron Sorkin, and that is okay. That is okay. Nicole, this is a safe space.
This is a safe space, and you are more than welcome to present all opinions here.
Yes, Daryl Manzel.
I thought Trial of Chicago 7, I thought it was fine. I liked everything that happened outside of the court more than I liked what happened in the court. That is what I will say about that. But Pieces of a Woman, though, starts with a 20 take of a home birth. It is one of the most audacious things I've ever seen a movie do. It is gut-wrenching to watch happen, and Vanessa Kirby, I honestly think, deserves the Oscar for Best Actress based on that 23 minutes alone. The rest of the film never really quite gets back to that energy, but it's still good, and Ellen Bernstein has like probably my favorite monologue of the whole year, from what I've seen thus far in films. So I highly recommend everyone watch it. It is going onto Netflix, I believe, in early January. It feels like a weird pick for a Netflix film. Like, I don't know that it's one that you'll ever want to like rewatch once you've seen it once, because it is quite difficult. I think especially any parents or people who know someone who's lost a child in, you know, any sort of way like that. But it's got some really great performances and a topic like that I feel like is typically quite taboo. You know, have an entire film where it's not just a plot point in it, but it is the subject of the entire film.
Yeah, Chrissy Teigen she and John Legend recently lost a child, and people were getting on her about how dare you publicize this. It's like, no, this should be something that is discussed. The
Yeah.
number of friends that I have that have what are called rainbow children, for those of you that don't know, children that have come after the loss of a child, whether a miscarriage or otherwise, would shock people that think that this isn't commonplace. So that's interesting. I can guarantee you I will not be watching it after child number 2 arrives, because no, I'm going to be delirious from lack of sleep. It's not going to happen, but I've heard really good things.
I tell you,
Very
I
cool.
can't wait till I can lay on my couch with my New Year's Day hangover and watch a 23-minute scene of a woman giving some home birth. It's going to be wonderful.
I mean, that's a way to celebrate the new year.
New year, new life, Doug.
Maybe that's a better way to end 2020 than start 2021.
Yeah, you're right. You ready to get into this the meat and potatoes of this here episode?
Absolutely.
And you know, Nicole, your insights are so wonderful. We could quite literally do all this. I kind of want to go back to Trial of Chicago 7 just for the look that Daryl had, and I love Sorkin. So that I just love the look on his face. But we brought you back. Those of you that did not listen to the last time Nicole was here, we had an amazing time. But what really came out of that, in addition to a great conversation, was finding out that she is a Disney aficionado with big opinions on these live action films that have been coming out. And so we thought, since Mulan, the live action, just came out on home video, that we would bring Nicole back so that we could discuss our individual 3 favorite Disney films of these live action ones. I'm just going to come right out and say that most of them seem absolutely unnecessary. Something new, have they intrigued me in the slightest? Which is why finding out that is it John Chu is going to be directing the live action Lilo and Stitch, I'm kind of like, why? I'm not even a huge Lilo and Stitch fan, and I'm like, the movie's great. Why?
Well,
because
I mean,
we need to horrify children with a live action Stitch, is apparently the answer.
I think we like money is apparently the answer.
Well,
they got plenty of that.
It's never enough.
They're just like Marvel, Star Wars. Marvel, Star Wars. That's really where we're at.
Pretty much.
Anyway, so because you are our wonderful guest, Miss Nicole, would you like to start us off with your first Disney adaptation?
So whenever I look at the live action remakes, and I've been a big defender of them since the beginning, which has been unfortunate as they've gone downhill. But Mulan gives me hope that maybe they can rediscover what they were meant to be. There are 2 things that I basically ask myself whenever I look at a live action remake from Disney. The first of which is it a good film? Is it well made? Does it have good performances? But the second of which is, does it justify its own existence? Because a lot of them don't.
Great questions.
A lot of them don't. And it's interesting because example, I think the new Dumbo film does justify its own existence. It's different enough from the animated Dumbo. It takes out some of the racist things in the animated Dumbo. It gets rid of some of the sequences that frankly horrified me as a child from the animated Dumbo, but it's not a good movie. So you gotta have both.
Yeah.
That I'm sure there's some that you could say are like, yeah, they're good movies, but they don't need to exist. So the one that truly I think has my whole heart, it's actually one of my favorite films of all time, is Cinderella, which I think is a good movie. And I realize I'm a little bit biased. Kenneth Branagh is one of my favorite directors, so of course I think it's a good movie. I love Lily James. I love Helena Bonham Carter. I love Richard Madden. And also Cate Blanchett, stepmother, is one of my favorite performances in a Disney live action film of all time. I think she's fantastic in that. She's actually one of my favorite supporting actress performances from 2015. I think she's splendid. But I think the film takes a movie that feels very outdated, that kids today don't have much of an interest in, and really updates it for both child and adult audiences. I think it gives a lot more context. I think it puts it maybe more relevant around the character of Cinderella, and that they make Prince Charming, played by Richard Madden, which first of all, impeccable casting. But they also make him quite a sensitive, emotional prints, which isn't something that you traditionally see in Disney movies. And I think that that's like a really nice message for young boys watching it as well, and to see that. So I also love the design of that film. I love the score in that film. Like, there's nothing about that movie that I don't love, but it also justifies its own existence.
Awesome. You may have convinced me to watch it. That came out when my first son was born, and so I never saw it, but Disney Plus has
Disney
it.
Plus, man.
What about you, Dale?
I have Disney Plus. Look, man, this is by far the quickest I've ever put a list together. For the simple fact that I've seen a total of 3 Disney live action movies.
Incredible.
And I had to stretch to remember that third one. What's the word I'm looking for? The division of duties when it comes to movie watching for my daughter that is here. Mom handles these type movies, and then I show her Star Wars and stuff like that. So we have our respective wheelhouses, although she did drag me to Coco. But yeah, 3. That's all I've seen. That's all I've seen. I didn't realize I hadn't seen so few of these, or that they had made so many, until I started doing research for this here show. So I'll talk about the 3 that I've seen.
There we go.
Starting with Lion King, and boy, is that some shit. You know what, man? Oh, man. Favreau did this joint. Coming off of what he did with Jungle Book, you look at the cast, the voice cast for this, you're like, this is going to be a fucking monster of a movie. And then, like, maybe 20, 30 minutes into it, I was just like, this is... I'm not sure if it would have had a little bit more credibility had we not got Jungle Book, or he's being judged unfairly in comparison to Jungle Book, but it just doesn't stand on its own. There's no soul in that movie. It's kind of like paint by numbers. You know the story. We're just going to take you there, throw in an extra song or two because we got Beyonce on the bill, and we got to justify paying her this amount of money, so we got to get some songs out of her, throw them shits in there, and then get from A to B. It's just
fails my tests on both counts.
it fails the Nicole test. It fails the Daryl test. It probably somehow fails the Bechdel test. I don't know, but it just fails everything. That sound effect you're just making, I was making that in the middle of the movie.
Oh, me too.
It's not great. It is a lesson on what not to do when it comes to remakes. I think if producers actually took your 2 questions, your criterion into consideration, we would either have less of these films or better films.
Yep.
So that's my review of Lion King. What about you, Doug? What's your first one?
Well, my first one, and this is my 3rd favorite leading up to my first.
You put yours in order, Doug?
I did put mine in an order.
Little wonders never cease.
There is, and I'll explain appropriately when we get there. For this one, it turns out, yes, they've made a ton of these, and I hadn't seen as many as I thought I had, but of what I've seen, very clearly, back to Nicole's criteria. How well is it saying something? And 2018, they did Christopher Robin.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a film in which not only is the construction of Pooh Bear and everybody, you feel like you could pick him up and get that tactile experience of your stuffed animal.
Right.
Ewan, who has quite a bit of an experience at this point with CG, interacted with them so well. It's
produced
Pooh
the bear. I realized I'm drinking out of the mug that came out to coincide with the movie.
Yay!
And I had to buy the bear because it's the recreation of the bear that the actual boy that his A.A. Milne's son who had. So I had to buy it because I'm a history nerd. So sorry to interrupt you, but I had to.
Absolutely.
Had to produce. I'm at my parents' house, so I can do this. So I have produced the actual bear.
Nice.
There is literally nothing wrong with that in the slightest. And I can't wait to show it to my son but unfortunately, he doesn't know Pooh Bear so well that this film would do anything for him. But what I loved about it is that it continued the story of Christopher Robin in a way that made sense as a kid's story from the books, but also for those of us that grew up reading Pooh Bear, it gave us something. It gave us that sort of Paddington feeling, that wholesomeness and that warmth and love. And that's why that is my first one. It's so wonderful. And I wish it had been better received.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
one. That's one I was like, I really need to check this out, and it just got by me.
Chris, New Year's Day, when you're hungover,
Oh, I can't wait! Can't wait for that
instead of
day.
Pieces of a Woman, watch
Yeah.
Christopher Robin.
Yes.
All right,
Much
all right.
more heartwarming.
I can get down with that. Excellent, excellent.
Miss Nicole,
Yeah.
you're number 2.
That would actually probably be my my number 4 if I got 4. So I'm glad that it got brought up. My number 2 is Maleficent, which I think is kind of the movie that kicked off a lot of these live action remakes. I think it's the earliest one, unless we're counting the like old Glenn Close 101 Dalmatians.
We got that Carrie
No, we're
Elway's
talking
Jungle
the
Book in
modern-
there too.
The modern
Yeah,
adaptation.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So Maleficent, I think, is one of the coolest examples of a live action remake in that, and it's the sort of thinking that I wish they would actually kind of move back towards with these, which is that it takes a familiar story and it gives us a completely different angle on it. I also think that one of the keys to doing the live action remakes, which I am going to contradict with my third choice, but it's fine, is taking movies that people aren't so attached to anymore. And remaking them into something else. Like Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, I don't think people have the same attachment to the actual film, even if they feel attached to the character. Like, if you want to change that plot, nobody's gonna care. It's not like The Lion King or Beauty and the Beast that people hold up as these like masterpieces of animated film, which is why I think they'd be better off. You know, a lot of people are like, why don't we get one of like Atlantis? These films that didn't do so great whenever they came out.
Which is Daryl's theory on remakes. If you're gonna remake a movie, remake a bad one.
Exactly. So you have nowhere to go but up.
Exactly.
And for me, like growing up, I never cared about Sleeping Beauty. So when Maleficent came out, I was kind of like, eh. And then I went and I saw it, and I was like, oh, it is a fairly daring film, and it kind of straddles that line of like, is this really a kids movie? Because it is quite dark, actually. But you've got Angelina Jolie as Maleficent. You've got this incredible makeup and hairstyling like on her, but also everyone. And you've got Elle Fanning being adorable as the Princess Aurora. And I think that it gives you a very different perspective on a lot of things without like fully contradicting the story that you know from childhood. And, you know, I think it's not a great movie maybe, but it's a good film, and it also justifies its own existence because it is different. And I don't think I will ever look at Sleeping Beauty the same way after having seen it. And it did well enough that they gave it a sequel. So I think that, that is the one to me that makes me say like, okay, when they started this whole thing, their ideas were in the right place. They've drifted, but it's proof that like, if they just kept to that vision and the vision that they had, with the Jungle Book too, then it could actually be something very special.
Right on.
While y'all were talking, I just scooped up the domain doesitpassthenikoletest.com. And that's going to be the new joint. You just input a movie's title and it spits out a yes or no. It's a very simple algorithm on this website. I'm going to make millions. I'll cut you in a slice. My second one.
Daryl Nicole. He's a hustler. He's going to monetize just about anything he can.
Oh, I love that.
Hustling is what I do most at best. My second movie is Aladdin. And I know a lot of people are on the fence either or about that.
That's my version of the Daryl face.
Calm down, sir. You're getting a concussion. I know a lot of people that are like, hey, yeah, it's a lot better than I thought it was. And I know a lot of people that are like, this movie was shit. And then half of those people went in already expecting the movie to be shit, so they kind of justified themselves. And there's a lot of people that are just like, nah, I just didn't like it. I'm on the other side of the fence. Aladdin, I've said numerous times, is my favorite of the Disney animated joints. You could not go in expecting Will Smith to top the Robert Williams performance. Obviously, that was impossible. So he just kind of did his own thing, made it his own humor. I'm quite satisfied with what he ended up doing and where they took that story. The cat who played Aladdin, I thought he did a good enough job. He didn't have the open vest. I was upset about that. I like open vest Aladdin. He show those pecs off. I don't know why a kid had pecs that great for his age in the animated joint, but that's neither here nor there.
Eating, and he was running all the time.
Yeah,
That's why.
Yeah. Being broke is great for the body. Let me tell you. But the visuals are dazzling. Like, I did not think Guy Ritchie directing this movie made a lick of sense whatsoever. This is not a Guy Ritchie style movie. I saw King Arthur. It was garbage. So I had no great hopes of that in that regard, but again, pleasantly surprised. He kind of switched his style to accommodate for this movie. And it ends up being just a fun romp from beginning to end. I think the weakest part of that movie is Jafar. He's in no way intimidating. He doesn't have a whole lot of agency in that movie. He's just kind of not even a whole lot of screen time, honestly. He just kind of is in the background doing his thing. Like Jafar in the animated joint, that's my dude. Like I've always aspired to have the facial hair that Jafar has because my man knows what he's doing. He's a clean villain. But this dude, he was the weakest part of this movie for me. I didn't see it. But overall, enjoyed it. I walked out of the theaters satisfied with the decision I made of what movie to go watch. It was this bright burn.
You have to, by the way, real quick, sorry to interrupt, Nicole. The correct pronunciation is Hot Jafar. Just need to...
Okay, I literally was coming in here. I watched this movie for the first time last night because I was like, oh, like, I missed this before I do this podcast. And I just got to say, the whole film, the entire film, I think I missed things. So I would sit there being like, why is Jafar so hot? Like, why did they do that? Like, are they supposed to not want me to want him to be the salt? Like, what's happening here? I'm like, Jasmine, what are you doing, girl? Like, have you seen him? Like, honestly, I think it was the most distracting thing because I spent the entire thing being like, why did they make this choice? Like,
he walked in the casting and they were like, sold.
They were like, what if instead of an intimidating Dylan, we just gave him a hot guy? And and then I was like, why do I know him? And I realized it's because he's in the Old Guard.
And he's amazing in the Old Guard.
So good. Right? Like, yeah. So he's
part of the couple, Daryl.
That's what I was thinking. That's what I was thinking.
Yep.
Yeah.
I thought it was a fine movie. Like, it doesn't fully maybe pass the Nicole test. There were things I wanted them to push a little bit farther and getting it further away from the animated movie. I also like one of my favorite things in the animated film and the sequels that follow is the whole thing about Aladdin and his like parental issues that he has. And I was like, why didn't you give me more of that? Like, but I do think like it is not the bad movie that people acted like it was. Like if you look at that in The Lion King, which came out, in the same year, like one of those is the clear winner.
Oh, it's Aladdin. It's Aladdin.
Yeah,
I would rewatch Aladdin even with the issues I have with it. Yep. The conscious choices that they made to change the live action from the animated, I would still choose to rewatch Aladdin over The Lion King.
Right on. Yeah.
With my second film, I have to make a confession because it's very similar to yours, Nicole. I have not seen Maleficent. Not in full. We got it from Netflix. We still get the discs. We got it from Netflix. We got to the point in the movie where we were being introduced to the godmothers and the disc froze.
No.
And we couldn't get it to go past that. Crystal, who had not been too endeared by the film by this point, went, I guess it's a sign. And we went, all right. And we just moved on with our lives. Maleficent 2 showed up on my doorstep. And I went, okay, I know the story well enough. I'll go do a little bit of research to make sure I see some of these things, but I have a pretty good idea, and I put that in. Mistress of Evil blew me away. I was impressed that not only did they create this worthy new story with this character, but it was bold enough to discuss war in a way that truly highlights the way that a society will not just try to defeat, but will actually engage in war crimes in order to try and win. Because the quote unquote good guys in the movie, led by Michelle Pfeiffer's Queen, they were enacting genocide. Like, this is a kid's movie, and I'm going, what? I was so impressed by this, completely and totally blown away. I have since gone and bought, when it was on sale, the first Maleficent. Haven't had time to watch it yet. But I plan to go back because Maleficent 2, to me, was comparatively so impressive that I want to make sure I've got both of them together. I want to make sure I have the opportunity to go back and watch it if I just want the full picture. Because when Connor is old enough to be able to watch these things and discuss them, Connor being my first son, the other one we don't have a name for yet. Too worried. I want to be able to show him the full story, that here's how we got from point A to point B, and here's why point B is bad. This is why it doesn't work this way. So I fully applaud them. I mean, the makeup is wonderful. Some of the approach to the story in Mistress of Evil was a little too separated, too divergent, that it became less engaging. But it's still wonderful how they approached it and how they told the story. So that's why I went with that one for my number 2. Miss Nicole, what is your last film?
My last one. Well, whenever I was making this list, I was like, actually, this works really well with what we wanted to tie the episode in with. Because my third one actually is Mulan.
Mulan.
Yeah, I think that Mulan is interesting because it does kind of which is remake a film that I don't care about, and I will probably like it, because Mulan is one of my favorite animated Disney films. It was the second film I ever saw in a movie theater. I grew up with it, and so I love it. I know, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I had moved to Charlotte around the time that movie came out. I still remember when McDonald's sold their chicken nuggets in takeout boxes.
Yep.
So
yep.
I'm so glad that was the second film you ever saw in theaters.
Yep.
No, but please continue.
I think that Mulan shows a really interesting thing in that one of the things that the people who made it talked about was that Mulan wasn't super well received around the world. It did really well in the US, but a lot of people in China had some issues with it, particularly as Mulan is a legend over there. It does come from something. So in doing Mulan, much like what they did with the Jungle Book, they wanted to kind of go back to the source material and see what else they could tease out of that was different from what they had taken the first time, and maybe be a little bit closer to that, and fold in some more elements from that they had missed out on the first time, and maybe also fix some of the things that were seen as a bit insensitive. And I think that is a really good use of the Disney live action remakes, is to make something that's maybe a bit more culturally sensitive than what was made the first time around. And the anime Mulan, one of the things that's great about it is it has weirdly fantastic action sequences for an animated movie, which I think lends itself well to then a live action remake of that. And I think that they did enough with it that I don't know that I like it better than the animated, but I think like I could totally see that one day I might be like, oh, I want to watch Mulan again, the live action, separate from being like, oh, let me pop in Mulan and like listen to the music from it. So it's not a perfect Maleficent or Cinderella, but I do think it passes both my tests, and I think that there's a lot of good in it, and I really also like the design of the movie a lot. I think both production and costume design are pretty cool, and it's also got some great performances, and it's also great to see a film like that with a all Asian cast that's meant for a major market. So I really applaud what they did with Mulan, because I was very skeptical going in, and I definitely got my mind changed by it.
Yeah, I remember when they announced it. They're like, they're doing. Actually, I was like, what are they gonna do next, Mulan? And then that's exactly what they announced. And I was like, I mean, yeah, okay, why not? They make it now, check it out. And then that first trailer hit, and I was like, oh, I might be in for some shit. It is sitting in my Voodoo to watch, and I cannot wait to check it out, because from what I've seen, I think I'm gonna enjoy this flick.
If you wait a couple of weeks, I think it's coming available to Disney Plus. If you have
then never
access.
mind.
Yeah, I think that it's coming in December.
Yeah.
Personally, I would rather go watch Hero. I would rather go watch Shadow. I would rather go watch Rumble in the Bronx. Um, I thought it was beautiful, and that was about it. That its representation of the culture. For instance, the design of the home is wrong for that period in time and location.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of those things where it shouldn't be a big deal, except they're trying to be authentic. And that was the thing. They were trying for authenticity and then put it in the wrong place and part of China.
It's not great. A lot of what I appreciate about it is that it's sort of the thing where, like, well, this is what they should be doing. Like, did they do it perfectly? No. But I would rather this live action remake than them attempting to, like, shot for shot remake Mulan.
Oh, I have no issue with that. And the style of the film lends itself. I mean, it's the Legend of Mulan. So I totally get going all in, but it really, to me, felt like an American perspective of a wushu film, which is weird because the director's from New Zealand.
That is my one thing. I'm like, why? You
Yeah.
could have hired the right, but I also feel that way about Aladdin. Like, you could have hired like a Bollywood director or something, and you hired Guy
That would have
Ritchie.
been amazing.
There was
that.
There was a whole Bollywood dance sequence in the film, and they still didn't hire a Bollywood director for it. Instead, they were like, you know who can do this? Guy Ritchie. Like, what?
It's one of those things for me.
Disney made up for that, by the way, with the Bollywood sequence that's going to be in the MCU Eternals movie that comes out here at the end of next year. So
dude, if they actually did that, I would lose my mind.
They did. I'm telling you, there is a Bollywood sequence in the movie.
What?
One of the Eternals is posing as a Bollywood actor, so they gave them a Bollywood scene.
Do you know which character? I don't know anything about the Eternals.
It's Kumail's character.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Pump it straight into my veins.
That would explain the workout he had to do. He
Yes.
looked good. I don't know if
Yes,
he's been
he
able to
did.
keep it up under quarantine.
He looked tasty.
Oh, he looked amazing. And with that horrible transition, Daryl, what's yours?
He looked how I looked far before quarantine started. In my last one, Jungle Book, it's man. Let me tell you something. That movie I dug from beginning to end. To me, that is Favreau's second best movie, and it's just below Iron Man. What he did, that getting the vocal performances that he got out of that, I now will cross the street whenever I see Idris Elba because his Shere Khan was too good. Like, I can't trust that man. I'll shake your hand from the other side of the street, sir. That it was just great, man. The one human you have in here did an amazingly good job. Just the vocal performances of you know what you're getting when you cast Scarlett Johansson. She has a very sultry voice. That's why they cast her as the voice in her, right? So when you
Not originally.
Who was that supposed to be? Did she also steal Emily Blunt's role there too?
Okay, Emily Blunt had a contract. She had a studio contract. She was obligated to do Gulliver's Traveler.
Thank God.
I forget the actor's name. I think she did, not like at the same time, but I think it's the same actor who did Punch Drunk Love with Adam Sandler. I think it's that same actor, but she had done all the lines, and then I think Jones was like, something's not right, and brought Scarlett in to do it.
Because they know what they're getting with that voice. And then even though the choice of Bill Murray for Baloo, just like when you heard that, everyone just goes, oh, yeah, of course, it makes sense. And then the weirdness of Christopher Walken doing his Christopher Walkenisms. Everything just fell into place for that movie. The story clicked, it moved, man. I was enraptured from beginning to end. I was one of those, I walked out and I was like, I really had a fun time watching that movie.
Right on. Right on.
Yep. So that is
That movie, one of the funniest things about it to me is whenever I was in college, I was in a class that got to do a like little session with Alan Horn, who's the chairman of Disney Studios, and he was talking about how that movie was kind of his baby, and it was like what he had wanted to make as soon as they came, and so he was really excited when Favreau signed on and everything, and like he had really wanted to make a film that was sort of halfway in between the Rudyard Kipling novel and the animated film. And so whenever they made it, they originally didn't put any music in it, and they, had their test audiences come in, and the test audiences were like, "Where's the bare necessities?
Yeah, what the fuck is
Like,
this?
Where is it?" And and put it in. Which so then every time someone is like, "Oh, I wish they hadn't done the music in it," I'm like, well, the test audiences disagree.
Yeah, I think
Test audiences are so dangerous in that way.
Yeah, they really are. And I think Bare Necessities is fairly high on my list of Disney songs, man. It's just got a nice little chill vibe to it. I don't
think it works in the film.
It works. It definitely works in the film. Whereas like Mulan, they don't have any music in there. I think that had it been in there, that would have taken me out. With this, we're at war. This ain't the time for fucking breaking out the songs and shucking and jiving and dancing. We ain't got time for this shit.
If they can do a montage, they can make a man out of me. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
They can do a montage.
All right, Doug. What's your last one there, sir?
My last one is one that when I saw it in theaters, I was lucky enough to cover it for Culture when it hit theaters. I was getting back into writing after my son had been born in 2016, and particularly being a parent, watching this one was for me hard. Watching any film with a child now just hits me different, and I was already sort of a raw nerve with stuff before. But in 2016, they released Pete's Dragon, and I just my heart burst wide open in a variety of ways. This is a film that I loved as a kid, but mostly remembered for the songs, Every Little Piece, and anyway, I'm not going to get into that, but I just had these such fond memories of it. So going and seeing this film, and yeah, the songs totally wouldn't have worked, but when you talk about does it do something to honor the original story? The dragon is depicted wonderfully, is crafted wonderfully. The relationship between Pete and the dragon is crafted wonderfully. They maintain that seafaring town atmosphere, even though I think it might be on a different coast. They still have the grandfather that believes in dragons. You've got the skeptic, except they made her part of the logging community, so we're getting some of the environmentalism, which makes it a little bit more modern. But what I loved is they took out the fact that, not that Pete was an orphan, but that taking care of him were abusive as hell, that they were hunting him. They're singing songs about, Pete, where'd you go? We're going to catch you and eat you, right? So they got rid of those folks and just made it about Pete and finding family and what finding family means. Carl Urban, as usual, does an amazing job showing up in anything.
Yep.
And just has a wonderful time with it. Bryce Dallas Howard is great. Robert Redford is wonderful. I mean, this just has a fantastic cast. Wes Bentley actually gets to do some work. It's kind of nice to see Wes do a little bit of acting. But this, of all the films that they've released, it adapts, it tells the story you know in a new way, and it adds something new. It removes what's problematic, but maintains what people loved. If Connor didn't have separation anxiety and has had it since almost birth, I would show him this movie, except the beginning of it would upset him so much. And of course, watching it, all I could think is, please don't let that be Bambi's mom. Don't let them do a live action Bambi and have this be their modern version. And then we've got the Disney. Daryl's very excited about this.
Please do a live
Disney
action
live
Bambi.
action universe that they're making. But anyway, I can't. The music is wonderful. I still put on the score from time to time. I forget the violinist's name. She apparently couldn't make it on America's Got Talent. And she was like, F you guys, and has sold out shows, toured through Charlotte, released albums. She's got a song on this soundtrack. So, guess you don't have to win the talent show. You just have to be on it. But that to me is the peak of the Disney adaptations, is Pete's Dragon.
Boom, there you go.
But, we all bring a little something to these, the things that we love, the things that we want out of a story. Cinderella, for you, spoke to you in an incredible way. And I think that's why when people who, for example, loved The Lion King, when they love it, it's because it spoke to them in some way. It sure shit didn't speak to me.
It was talking?
Pete's Dragon. Pete's Dragon is one of the few that I actually haven't seen, and you have convinced me that I need to move that to the top of my watch list and see that.
I hope my expectations don't destroy the experience, but I do very much recommend it. And you know what? I have a free night tomorrow night. If I end up not showing Crystal Parasite, I will watch Cinderella and I will get back to you.
Oh, that makes me so excited. Awesome. Yeah,
I'm not planning on watching anything.
I think what has become clear, though, is that there is a very obvious set of criteria for what makes a good live action remake of these Disney films and what makes it fail. And if only Disney Studios could figure that out, if maybe they'll listen to this and then they'll fix all of these movies. Am I being too optimistic? Absolutely. But I think
Isn't that what Disney is? Optimism?
No, that's what being a film critic is. It's optimism. You go into it being like, this will be an experience. One way or another, it's going to be.
But yeah, I think there are so many movies that I would like to see get this sort of Disney live action remake treatment. I mentioned Atlantis, Sword in the Stone, some of those ones like that I think especially kids today, looking at my sister who's 17, she'd be like, what is that? And then there are some where I'm like, please don't touch it. But they already took Lion King from me. So
if you want to see a good version of The Sword in the Stone in live action, if you've never seen The Last Starfighter from is it 84? Yeah, 84. Check that out.
Okay, I need to see that one.
Yeah. It's one of my favorites. Arrow Video did a restoration of it, and the restoration is gorgeous. It really is.
Nice.
It's got 3 different audio settings. I'll have a review of that going up on Elements of Madness this week, I think, or around the time this episode is dropping. But the writer took inspiration both from The Once and Future King, which he was reading, and the fact that this pizza parlor he would swing by to get a drink had one arcade machine, and there was always someone on it. And he was like, this would be amazing as a story. So
That's awesome.
I would actually love to hear what someone who didn't grow up with it thinks.
Yeah.
Looking back. It's very dated in the graphics department. Mm-hmm. It's one of the earliest. It was made after Tron, if that helps.
Okay.
And Tron was more live action with animation on top of it, whereas Starfighter is more CG. So if you do check it out, check it out, please let me know what you think.
Okay, I need to.
All right. Daryl?
Yeah, check out Tron.
And also The Last Starfighter.
And also The Last Starfighter. Both of those are good joints if you haven't checked them out. Bold is what I'll call both of those movies. They took risks. Does it hold up? No. But the story itself, visually, no, it doesn't hold up. The story itself is definitely swinging for the fences in both Tron and in The Last Starfighter. Check them shits out if you have.
Yeah. Well, I think we are about at time. And, I mean, obviously, we could keep talking about this because, Nicole, you're amazing. But you might have a Hallmark movie to go watch. I don't know.
We can hope not.
Check your email, see if a screener showed up, something, happy, Requiem for a Dream.
I need to watch, what is it, Happiest Season? Which I'm hearing great things about, so I need to watch that one. I've got that in my inbox.
Speaking of lesbian stories.
Yep, exactly. Well, it's all I get handed to review these days. I'm like, is there not someone better? But I'm like, whatever, I'll take it. So.
To be honest, I'm hoping to watch that myself.
It looks really fun.
My schedule is weird right now, and actually, when we're done recording, I want to talk to you about something.
Okay.
I want to talk to you about something because it
Okay.
won't make sense for this. So
Yeah.
when we're done recording,
Okay.
But yeah, cool. Hopefully you'll enjoy Happiest Season. I don't know.
Indeed.
Maybe they just need to make the lesbian romance more modern for it to not be
anything
portrait.
anything with Victor Garber, I will enjoy. So.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
Did you watch Eli Stone by any chance?
I haven't. But yeah. Okay.
We'll talk.
I need
We'll
to.
talk.
Yeah.
We'll talk.
All right.
Anyway, hey Daryl.
Hey there. Yeah, you got anything else for the people, Doug?
Nah, I got nothing. Look for Nicole everywhere that you can find her. She is an amazing writer. She writes essays and she does podcasts and writes reviews. She does all kinds of stuff. And Nicole, where can people find you?
I do believe they can find her at www.doesitpassthenicoletest.com.
I want to buy it now. But yeah, thank you guys so much. I'm so excited to have been on. The best place to find me is on Twitter at Nicole Ackman 16. I tend to put everything that I write up on there. I'm also on Instagram and Letterboxd at Nicole Ackman 16. I have great high quality Letterboxd reviews. Like for example, my Ammonite review is just in quotes, women, Saoirse Ronan and Joe March, but all so you can find me over there, giving really insightful reviews. But yeah, I'm writing and podcasting for Next Best Picture in their own league, FF2 Media, and also doing some theater work at Broadway World when I can. And then you can also check out my period drama podcast that I do with my friend Maggie, which is called Petticoats and Poppies, and we are on Twitter at HGATM podcast.
Boom.
Yeah. She makes me exhausted just hearing about everything.
There's the spiel. I'm like, have I forgotten something? Like,
that was half the podcast right there.
We had to make it extra long just to fit all of it in, but it was worth it.
It was worth
it. Thank you guys for having me.
It was our pleasure. So we're not going to go on an extended hiatus, right, Daryl?
We're not. We should be back in 2, sir.
Sweet. All right, everybody. Watch some good stuff.
All right. Take it easy out there.